So we recite the Bhagavad Gita first, the chapter normally. Okay. So we are doing 14th chapter this day, isn't it? Yeah. So let's start with the 14th chapter. All of you have the Gita with you? Okay. So, this is Gita chapter 14. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Do you recite it responsively or how do you recite it? Together, no? Yeah, okay. Now all of them together? Oh, it's not 14th chapter. It's different. Okay, fine. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sak. Together or responsively? Yeah, okay. So, Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Kyasyasi Tashrunu Mattah Parataram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya Mahi Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Maniganaiva Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam Tyajatyante Kalevaram Tam Tam Mevaiti Kaunteya Sada Tadbhava Bhavitaha Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara Yudhyacha Mai Arpita Mano Buddhir Mame Vaishyasya Samshayaha Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritimashtritaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadimavyayam Ananyashchintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham Karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasi yat yattapasyasi kaunteya tatkurushva madarpanam Kipram bhavati dharmatma shashvachantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati aham sarvasya prabhavo Mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha macchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te teshamevānukam pārtham aham ajñānajam tamaha nāshayāmyātma bhāvastho jnanadīpena bhāsvataha matkarma krun matparamo madbhakta sangavarjitaha nirvaira sarvabhūteshu Yah samameti pandava Yetu sarvani karmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Bhujanyenaiva yogena Madhyayanta upasate Teshamaham samudharta Mrityu samsara sagarat Bhavami nachirat partha Maya veshita chetasam Mayeva manadhatsva Mai buddhim niveshaya Nivasishyasi mayeva Ata udhvam na samshayaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. thank you all for coming today. We are very fortunate to have His Grace Caitanya Charan Prabhu. As you know, Caitanya Charan Prabhu is known all around the world for his devotional, deep and scholarly lectures. So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to hear from him and to ask whatever questions that we may have on this particular topic that we are going to discuss today, or anything that we have heard so far, or whatever you are waiting to hear. Caitanya Charan Prabhu, thank you for accepting our invitation and coming today. This is a wonderful group of committed devotees. Most of them, they read 2 hours of Srila Prabhupada's books every week, and they are committed to coping up with the speed, with the manageable speed with which we actually cover the chapter. We try to cover 1 chapter every week, and they also bombard with a lot of questions also. So we want to keep at least like 15-20 minutes at the end for answering.
Sure. Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. That's okay. Hare Krishna. So, thank you for coming today, and I'm grateful to be here to have an opportunity to discuss the Bhagavad Gita. So, coincidentally, the 14th chapter is one of my favorite chapters. So, probably along with the 6th chapter. So, as Ghanshyam Prabhu oriented me about this class, I will take the sections and some application based on the sections. So, in context, in the 13th chapter, in the previous chapter, in the 22nd verse, Krishna gives a verse which is considered the bija, the seed of the subsequent 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So 13.22 he states, Purushah prakristho hi bhungte praktijan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. So Purushah prakristho hi, the soul becomes situated in material nature. Prakristho hi bhungte prakritijan gunan, and desires to enjoy the products of material nature. Karanam guna sangosya, and because of association with the 3 modes, sad asad yoni janmasu, the soul experiences good and bad, not just in this life, but in various species also. So one example which you could use to understand this is like a child sitting in front of a TV and watching a horror movie. The child is safe with the mother nearby, but as long as the child's consciousness is caught in that horror movie, the child will go through all kinds of emotions. Horror, terror, fear, suspense, everything. So similarly, the soul is spiritual, but Purushaha Prakristho, the soul has become situated in material nature by its consciousness. And why has the soul become situated like that? Karanam gunasangosya, because of association with the modes. Now what are the modes? That is described in this chapter. So in a sense, 13.22 is the seed from which the subsequent 5 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita will emerge. Just like we have a tree that emerges from a seed, Krishna will talk about the upside down tree of material existence in the next chapter, 15th chapter. So how is that tree nourished? How does the tree grow? It grows by the three modes of material nature. So that's the source of the bondage. At one level, the modes are like, if we want to continue the TV metaphor, ultimately whatever we see on TV or on laptop, it's nothing except certain different colors of pixels brought together to create forms. So depending on how you want RGB or ROIB, red, green, blue, red, yellow, blue, whatever you want to use, basically three colors are there which combine together to create unlimited forms. And what we see on the screen can create almost unlimited emotions within us. So similarly, the three modes combine together to create various illusions that captivate us. Now the first, so this is a brief introduction of the connection between 13 and 14 chapters. Now 14th chapter begins with each chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, almost all chapters, they begin initially with some glorification of the knowledge given therein. See, generally, if we tell people to do something, please take this there, please take that there. Now, we may know how important it is. But they may think, okay, it's not, okay, if I take it, good, if I forget, it doesn't matter. They may not realize its importance. So suppose a doctor is giving some prescription. Suppose the doctor says, okay, you have to do this exercise, you have to do this, you have to take this medication. And sometimes the doctor may say, even if you forget to take all of the medications, you must take this medication. Mm-hmm. So, or even if you can't do any other exercise, at least do this one exercise. So if something is important, the doctor should not just give important knowledge, but the doctor also needs to tell the importance of that knowledge. Otherwise, the subject will not, the patient may not understand why it is so important. That's okay. Hare Krishna, okay, fine. So the first two verses, Krishna talks about this in the 14th chapter. He says that, I'm going to give this knowledge, Parambhuya pravakshami jnananam jnanamuttamam yajñātvā munaya sarve param siddhimito gataha. By understanding this knowledge, which is very confidential, the great sages have attained liberation. And the next verse, he repeats the same glorification, the similar glorification of the knowledge, and he says, Idam jnanam upashritya mamasa dharmim agataha sargepi nopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. By this knowledge, you won't take birth again and you won't be distressed at the time of death. But the word which I'd like to focus on here is idam jnanam upashritya. Krishna is saying, by taking shelter of this knowledge. Ashraya is shelter. Normally we think of taking shelter of Krishna. But it's interesting, Krishna is using over here, take shelter of this knowledge. Those who take shelter of this knowledge are saved from the distresses of birth and death. So what does it mean to take shelter of knowledge per se? Actually, ultimately we need to take shelter of Krishna. But the problem is that often we don't feel the need for Krishna. Suppose somebody has a sickness that is not immediately felt. Somebody may have a terrible disease, but sometimes the symptoms don't come. So if the patient does not understand how serious this disease is, like I had a very advanced TB and I had to take a 1-year Cox treatment at that time. The doctor told me after 2 months, your symptoms will subside. But please don't stop taking the medication. Because if you stop, the symptoms are gone, that's why you stop. It will resurface again, it will become resistant TB. Far more difficult to cure. So he said that, keep taking the medication, even if the symptoms are not there. So in order to take the medication, we need to take the knowledge first. Otherwise, we won't feel the need for the medication. So we'll see, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will say, take shelter of me. But before that, he's saying, take shelter of the knowledge. Because by taking shelter of the knowledge, we'll feel inspired to take shelter of Krishna. And this is a principle we'll repeatedly see. Even if our sadhana, if our japa, our seva, our puja, whatever we are doing, if we have some intellectual understanding of why we are doing it, then we can do it with greater conviction. If we understand the glory of the holy name, we can chant more seriously. If we understand how Krishna is manifesting as the deity is, not understand in the sense that comprehend, but in the sense that remember or remind ourselves. So Krishna is saying, take shelter of this knowledge. And by that you will be saved from distress. So knowledge, on the path of bhakti, knowledge should not be overestimated, but it should not be underestimated also. For us, knowledge is also something which you can take shelter of, so that we can take shelter of Krishna. And additionally, taking shelter of Krishna can also be, taking shelter of knowledge can also be seen as a means of worshipping Krishna. That's what Krishna says at the end of the Gita. In 18.70 he says that Adhishyate cha yaimam dharmyam samvadamavayo jnana yagyena tenaham ishtasyamiti me matihi. And those who study this conversation of ours, they are worshipping me with their intelligence. So studying philosophy to the capacity that we can is important. We shouldn't see that as not devotional service. It is very much integral to devotional service. So take shelter of knowledge so that we can take shelter of Krishna better. And through taking shelter of knowledge also, we are taking shelter of Krishna. And then he talks in the next two verses about how the soul who is transcendental, Purushaha Prakritistohi, that was said in 13.22. So how does the soul come in the material world? So he tells the mechanism is through his Sarvayonishu Kaunteya Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Madhyonir Aham Bija Pradah Pita. He says, I am the seed giving father. So it's like a normal procreational process. There is the father, there is the mother, and there is the progeny from there. So similarly, Krishna is the father, nature is the mother. And the soul who is born, just like a normal child, has combined characteristics of both the mother and the father. And after a child is newborn, and both the parents want to see, okay, what characteristics of mind does he have? Eyes are like mine, nose is like hers, or whatever. So the soul presently has a combination, has a material side and a spiritual side. So the spiritual side is because we are parts of Krishna. But we are in the material world, and thus we have a material side also. And this whole chapter will focus on how the material side entangles us and how we can engage with it so that we can become elevated and liberated. And then from 14.5 onwards, I'll not go over all the verses. I'll go only some of them to finish in time. And if any of you have any, so this was the first section where Krishna gives the background, the importance of the knowledge, and how we come under the modes. So if any questions, you can ask, or we'll move on. So in 14.5, he starts with the introduction of the modes. Sattvam rajastamaiti guna prakriti sambhavan nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Says all living beings are bound in the material world by the three modes. So we could use different metaphors for the modes. One metaphor was a use of colors. The three broad colors which combine to create images. But here another metaphor can be used. Guna can also mean rope. So there are three kinds of ropes that bind us. And instead of thinking of these as three discrete ropes, yes, there are three discrete ropes also, but these ropes have strands which intermix. Each rope pulls our consciousness in a particular way. So the modes, what are they? There are multiple things, but from our perspective right now we could say that they are the subtle forces that shape the interaction between matter and consciousness. There's matter out there and we are conscious being. So how matter and consciousness interact with each other, that is shaped by subtle forces known as the modes. That means the same object, if I perceive it in goodness, if I perceive it in passion, if I perceive it in ignorance, I'll perceive differently. And why is that? Because of the subtle force that is acting. So a simple example could be, say, three people are sitting in a bus and they are driving. They're traveling and they see nearby beautiful greenery. A person in goodness is sitting in the bus and is trying to read a book, and the bus is shaking and bumping and is not able to read so well. That person looks and sees, oh, this forest is so peaceful. I could just sit in that peaceful forest and absorb myself in the wisdom. A second person is maybe just watch some movie or is watching some movie on the phone, some romantic movie, and the person sees a forest and sees the greenery and remembers some romantic song that he saw in the movie. He or she saw. And they think that, oh, if I had a partner, I could enjoy so much, such a beautiful forest. The third person is trying to just doze off and sleep, and the movement of the bus is jolting that person awake. The person looks at the forest and he says, such a peaceful space. I can sleep so nicely here. So there's matter and there's consciousness. The consciousness is the people who are observing. So why the different response? It's because the first person is in which mode? Goodness, sattva. Second is in passion. That is in Sanskrit what? Rajas. And the third in ignorance, tamas. Yes. So you could say that the modes are subtle forces that shape the interaction between matter and consciousness. So you could put it another way as, some people make things happen, some people watch things happen, and some people wonder what happened. So these are the three modes. People in goodness, they plan, they work, and they make things happen. They do something, they get others to do things. So they are thoughtful. And people in passion, they start running and doing things, and they do one thing, and then suddenly that happens, and that happens, and that happens. And then what is going on? Some people speak to express their thoughts, and some people speak to discover their thoughts. And when they speak something, hey, I didn't want to say that. And then the other person gets offended and they speak something and they speak something, and then, hey, what happened? I didn't want to. They watch things happen. And some people are there in their own stupor. Hey, what's going on? I wonder what happened. They're just lost in their own world. But this is broadly the three modes of material nature. So Krishna says, he gives the characteristic of each of these modes, and he does that in two places. First, he gives analytical characteristic. See, analytical means, okay, this is the characteristic over here, this is the characteristic over here, this is the characteristic over here. Just like, say, going back to the earlier example of red, green, RGB, if you want to say, red, green, blue. So this is the red color, this is green color, this is blue color, Krishna says. So he says that when the color is, in goodness, there are two characteristics. That's 14.6, he says that the characteristics are that tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakamanāmayam sukhasangena badhnati jnana sangena chanaga. Says there is happiness, there is clarity, there is purity. So overall the sattva is positive, but it can make one feel complacent and comfortable over here. Sukhasangena badhanati. And it can also make one feel superior. Oh, these people are ignorant, I know. And one delights in the knowledge and stays stuck. I'll talk about this a little bit later. Then in the next verse he says that the mode of passion is characterized by karma. Rajo ragatmakam viddhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tannibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. You're bound by karma. Because why? There is raga. Raga is attachment. And not just attachment, but overpowering craving. Trishna. Trishna. An alcoholic is completely free. Is completely free to choose whether to drink beer or wine. Not to choose whether to drink or not. So when there is trishna, there is craving. They say that if there's a amateur, say, car salesman. That car salesman will make the pitch. And like say, so, sir, would you like to have a car? So, ma'am, would you like to have a car? But an experienced salesman will say, so, which car would you like to have? The red, green or blue? Few things take away our freedom as easily as the illusion of freedom. When we are given an illusion of freedom, do you want this, this, this? But do I want any of this? I don't need a car maybe. So what the mode of passion does is, it makes us feel you have so many choices. Hey, you want to entertain yourself? You have 100 channels. You can have so many movies. You can have so many to watch. But in that overburden of choices, we forget to think whether I need to choose any of these at all or not. So if somebody tells us don't do this, we will not listen to it. But somebody gives us so many choices, but all of those choices are what they want us to do. So in the mode of passion, we think we are free, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. But we are driven to do particular things within this area of our attachments only. And in the mode of ignorance, we are bound. Krishna says that mode of ignorance is carried ajnana, ignorance. So Krishna, now after talking about this, I'll come back to ignorance a little later, but let's, Krishna then says there is a tug of war going on between the modes within us. So the 10th verse talks about this competition between the modes. Rajas tamascha vibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Sometimes passion and ignorance are defeated and goodness comes up. Or sometimes, similarly, he says that ignorance is defeated, ignorance and passion are defeated, goodness comes up. Or sometimes, the other mode comes up. So like that, there's a pull going on between the modes. So, generally, we all, if we observe ourselves, we see that we go through different emotions. Most people today don't know about the concept of modes. But everybody knows about the concept of moods. Isn't it? We all have our moods. And some people have like incredible mood swings. At one moment they're so happy. They seem to be like dancing in heaven. And the next moment they're so down in depression as if nothing is happening. As nothing is going to work. So these mood swings, why do they happen? Because the modes are influencing us in different ways. So the modes induce the moods within us. And one of the things that we understand from the Bhagavad Gita, especially the 14th chapter, is that we are not the masters in our own house. We are not the masters in our own house. We could say the body, Navadware Pure Dehi, the body is like our house, but we are not charged in our own house. Not in charge. We decide to do something, but sometimes some people say, okay, from tomorrow, I'm going to wake up early in the morning. Make up the resolution. And then maybe one day they do it, second day they do it, 3 days they do it, and 4th day, they wake up very late. That's what happened. I changed my mind. Actually, they didn't change their mind changed them. So what happened was that we decide to act in a particular way, but we just can't act. And understanding the modes helps us to understand, when we understand that we are not the masters in our own house. That doesn't mean that we are powerless. It just means that we have to recognize that we are someone we have to contend with. Contend with means, say if you are working with some other person. Now, if you want them to do a particular thing, it's very rare that we tell and the other person will just uncritically obey. They'll have their own ideas. And then we have to contend with them. We have to persuade them. And sometimes we can succeed, sometimes we can't succeed. So there is this chapter, the key theme which I would like to, there are many themes we can talk about, that we all have to, for dealing with ourselves, we have to have a combination of self-discipline and self-discovery. Self-discipline means, this is what I'm going to do, however I feel about it. But we can't just keep ourselves under our thumb like our own slaves. So self-discipline alone will not work. But there will also be self-discovery. Normally we talk about self-discovery in terms of understanding that I am the soul. Yes, that is true. I am the soul different from the body. But self-discovery also means understanding what kind of body and mind I have. So how this body and mind can work the best. So we make certain resolutions and it's relatively easier to stick to those resolutions. Some resolutions, it's extremely difficult to stick to them. Some resolution, even when we are making it, there is dissolution inside. I'm not going to do it. It's not practical. It's not going to happen. So then, trying to do that might not be the most productive use of our energy. So self-discovery means understanding what kind of nature we have, what kind of influence of modes on us is there, and how best to live with ourselves. At one level, we want to change ourselves. But at another level, we need to live with ourselves while we are trying to change ourselves. It's a simple example. Say if you're driving a car. Now, some cars might have a very fast pickup. They can move very fast. Some cars will move literally slowly. Some cars are meant for, you can have a large family going there. Some cars are just like for one or two people. And so different cars are different. So if we have a car which we are driving, we want to feel the car. Okay, how is the car's pickup? How are the brakes? Where is this device? Where is this machine? Where is this? So if we are driving a car a new car which is not yet driven, then first we need to familiarize ourselves with the car. So similarly, we could say our body mind machine is like a car. Yantra rudhani mayaya. So now every car can be driven well by an expert driver. But even the most expert driver, say, cannot drive, say, a Fiat the way you drive a Benz. Each car has its own features. So self-discovery is about understanding the kind of car that we have. And this self-discipline is about making sure that we drive the car the best that we can. So some people say, just be yourself. Just be yourself. There are some people who say that just, everything about you is perfect. So I am okay, you are okay, everyone is okay. Okay, what do you mean by that? What do you mean exactly by that? Actually, there is a part of us that is okay. We are souls, we are parts of Krishna. At our core, we all have spiritual potentials. In that sense, there is a lot that is okay, but there is a lot that is not okay also. So there is one extreme where there is this total self-acceptance and no attempt at self-transcendence. Self-transcendence means going beyond what I am to becoming a better person. But there is other, which is like total self-transcendence and no self-acceptance. And I just have something which I want to become, and I don't even accept where I am at right now. So there has to be self-acceptance so that there can be self-transcendence. So it's like, say, if you are driving a car, I have to accept what kind of car I have. Then I can drive that car to the destination I want to go to. So some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. So one example of, say, self-acceptance could be. See, extroverts are people, the more people they meet with, the more happier they become. If they come to a party or a get-together with a smile, and the more people they meet, their smile becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And introverts are people, they come with a smile, and the more people they meet, their smile becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And they're gradually, they're just somehow surviving. So introverts are people who get strength when they are alone. It's not that they're anti-people, but it's just that you could use the word social stamina is finite. So they can meet a certain amount of people, after that I need my space. So there are extroverts who actually get strength. If they are alone, they'll pick up a phone and call someone. I don't want to be alone, I want to talk with someone. So each of us is different. And every person can serve in their own way. So extroverts are very good at networking. Introverts are very good at, say, work that requires introspection, deep thinking. So depending on the kind of body-mind machine we have to engage ourselves accordingly. If an introvert becomes extreme introvert, I will not talk with people only. That's unhealthy. If an extrovert says, I'll keep talking with people, I'll not think only. That's also not good. I have to do some introspection also. So, some people, when you're with them, they just don't talk. You talk 10 sentences and they'll speak one word. You have to push them to talk something. And some people, you have to push them, stop talking now. Enough. Just be a little silent. Why are you such a chatterbox? So what happens, people are different, and so there is an element of self-discovery. An introvert may not become an extrovert. But an introvert can understand how I can work best with people. See, for introverts, sometimes when they are if there is too many people, for them, some amount of privacy is like oxygen. And if they don't have it, then after some time, they just start behaving unpleasantly. They start just becoming, they're not obnoxious people, but they start behaving in a very repulsive way. So if they understand that, okay, this is how I am, so I need my space, I need my time, then they can work better. So basically, if a person is in the mode of passion, for them, if you tell them to do very sedentary kind of activities, they will not be able to do it. They need some activity, they need some energy. Without it, they can't function. If we have a Brahmana and if we have a Kshatriya, we have a Vaishya and we have a Shudra. And these are not just castes, they are human types. They are broadly. So if you tell a Brahmana, we have to do fundraising of $1 million to build a new temple. The Brahmana will say, after you build a temple, you're only going to discuss Shastra. Just discuss it here only. Why do you need a temple? The Brahmana will not be interested. On the other hand, a Vaishya, if you ask a Vaishya, actually in the Bhagavatam there is a verse which says that sometimes for a higher purpose, if you speak untruth, that's also okay. Where is that verse? Can you find out? Vaishya says, Bhagavatam, there are thousands of verses. Where will I find one verse in the Bhagavatam? Just give your class without the verse. Who will notice? So, for a Brahmana, if you tell, can you find this verse? Oh yeah, where could it be? Can it be in this section? Can it be in that section? So people often say, don't see problems as problems. See problems as challenges. That's true in terms of attitude. But for a Brahmana to see fundraising as a challenge, it's not possible. It's a problem. For a Vaishya to see Shastric research as a challenge, it's not a challenge, it's a burden. Why do it? So, when we understand ourselves better, how the modes are influencing us, then we can take the challenges that stimulate us. See, for a Vaishya, if you tell, we have to raise funds. Now we are doing something. Otherwise, what are we doing in our bhakti? We should do something. Come on, let's move. So, for all of us, if we understand our own body-mind machine, so now for a Vaishya to raise funds also requires some amount of discipline. For a Brahmana also to study Shastra requires some amount of discipline. So self-discipline is required for everyone. But if you tell a Brahmana to do self-discipline of fundraising, that is too painful. And for a Vaishya to do self-discipline for exhaustive Shastric study, that will also not work. So that's why I said, for us to work with ourselves, there is a combination of two things. What are they? Self-discipline? Yeah, self-discipline and self-discovery. So the whole framework of the modes, we analyze this to understand ourselves better. So when Krishna is saying there's this tug-of-war between the modes within us. Different modes, one mode comes up, the other mode comes down. So basically, all this is to understand ourselves better. So now, Krishna has given an introduction of the three modes in the first, from 14.5 to 14.9. Then he gives a talk about the conflict. And in the conflict, which mode is winning? The three modes which are pulling us. So how do we know which mode is winning? So there are times when we feel very calm and reflective. Even a person in the mode of passion, there are times when they really want to take stock and think of their life. If you completed a big project, then let's talk. Let's have a debriefing to see how it went, what we can learn. So Krishna is saying that based on what kind of thoughts and emotions are rising within you, you can understand which mode is rising. So yada sattvam pravriddhetu. No, sorry, before that. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvam ityuta. So he says when all the doors of the body are illumined with knowledge, that we can understand characteristic of the mode of goodness. Now the Bhagavad Gita is a poetry. It's a poem. Gita is poetry. And poetry means it often has non-literal usages. Characteristic of poetry is various kinds of ornaments. So here, when Krishna is saying, Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha, when all the doors of the body are illuminated, then that's sattva. Does that mean in the sattva, in a sattva person, when they open their eyes, suddenly light glares out of them? Or you look at their ears, you see a light bulb inside their ears. Sometimes you have these action movies. Some people have special powers. They open a special eye and some light comes out of their eyes. Is it like that? No. What Krishna is meaning over here is, say if there's a big house and there's a door to the house. Now if in the area of the door there is no light, then we won't be able to see who is coming in, who is going out. But if there is light, then we can regulate. If some unwanted person is coming in, immediately we'll close the door. Say if a child is sneaking out, don't go out, it's not safe, we'll close the door. If a friend is coming in, we'll open the door. So when there is light, we can regulate input and output. So when Krishna is saying, Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate. In goodness, all the doors of the senses are illumined by knowledge. That means we understand what to take in through the senses and what to give out through the senses. So what to speak, what not to speak. What to eat, what not to eat. What to see, what not to see. Now sometimes those 3 monkeys are shown. Do not see bad, do not hear bad, do not speak bad. So that is broadly sattva living. But to understand, we have to first, to do these things, we need to know what is good and what is bad. So in goodness, that clarity comes over there. So when we start feeling reflective, that means we can understand the mode of goodness is increasing. But sometimes we may decide, okay, I want to do some introspection. But you start doing something and you feel, come on, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. So if the urge to act is increasing a lot, that's Krishna says, Lobha pravrttira arambha karmanamashama spruha rajasyetani jayante viruddhe bharatarshaba. So he says, actually, in Rajoguna, activity. Just, we have to do activity. So I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. No, that's not bad. See, none of the modes are bad. We shouldn't think the mode of ignorance is bad or the mode of passion is bad. All the modes are required. What is bad is our getting taken over by one particular mode. Say, when it is time to sleep, one of the most frustrating things is if you're not able to sleep. Now, many people, if that thing works in their life, they just pull a blanket over their face and go to sleep. At least that works. This is not working, that is not working, that is not working, I'll just go to sleep. But even sleeping doesn't work. You're not able to sleep also. It's extremely frustrating then. So, actually, if the mode of ignorance actually doesn't take us over, we can't sleep. Sleeping is quite a mysterious phenomena. Of course, it is mysterious because sometimes people sleep at the wrong time. But the point is that mode of ignorance is also required so that we can rest and sleep. Mode of passion is required so that we can act. Just like all the 3 colors are required. But using the 3 colors, what image is being formed? If I'm drawing a parrot, the parrot should be green. But if I combine the colors in such a way that the parrot comes out to be black, well, that is not proper, isn't it? So each activity requires a particular mode. So I remember once a devotee, there's a guest who was coming in Pune to visit, and somehow their flight had come earlier. And then we were rushing to receive that guest. So there was the devotee who was a driver. The flight had already come, we had to go to the airport. Just walking so gently, slowly. He said, come on, let's go, we have to rush. He says, no, I want to walk in the mode of goodness. Yeah, in general, we should be in the mode of goodness. But more important is that we have to do what we need to do. So sometimes we need to run, we should run. Now, if we constantly keep running and can't stop running, then that is being controlled by the mode of passion. So none of the modes is uncritically good, none of the modes is entirely bad. It is what is required as a functional combination for our working at a particular time. So in general, if there is a certain amount of goodness, we can regulate and act effectively. But each mode in its own way is required. And Krishna says the mode of ignorance is characterized. So you could put the three modes in a simple way as, if there is, in goodness, there is first reflection, then there is action. I think first, then I act. In passion, there is first action, then reflection. In ignorance, there is neither reflection nor action. There is just illusion. Aprakasho apravrittischa pramado moha evacha. So Krishna uses these three words, shorthand words to describe the three modes. Prakasha, pravritti and moha. So prakash is for which one? Goodness. Prakash means illumination. Prakash is for goodness. Pravritti is action, activity or hyperactivity. That is for passion. And moha is illusion. That is for ignorance. Yeah. So Krishna will talk about this again in 14th chapter again, later. So then he talks about these three modes. And first he's talking analysis. So in thinking there are two processes broadly. There's analysis and there is synthesis. Analysis is where we divide things into parts. Just like, okay, this is this color, this color, this color. Synthesis is where we bring the colors together to create a attractive painting. So now Krishna is, so first 5 verses from 14.5 onwards till 14.9, Krishna is talking about the modes in analysis. Now from 14.11 to 14.18, he will talk about the modes in synthesis, how they work together. So he says, when you live in goodness, Krishna will talk from the long-term perspective, the long-term effect to the short-term effect. The long-term effect is that if you die when you are in the mode of goodness, yada sattvam pravriddhetu pralayam yati deha bhrit tadottam vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate, you will get elevated. You will attain a higher destination. I remember Krishna has said, I talked about 13.22, where Krishna says, sad asad yoni janmasu. Based on how the soul gets attached to matter, the soul gets good and bad in various species. So that various species Krishna is talking over here. So then he says, in the mode of passion, you will stay over here itself. Rajasi pralayam gatma karasang karma sangishu jayate tatha pralinas tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. So the modes can affect our long-term destinies, where we go after death. But it's not just a long-term effect. Then there is also various, there's medium-term effect, the short-term effect. So then, karmana sukrutasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasa phalam. So he says, when you act in goodness, overall, the result will be purification. So there is elevation, which is the long-term result. The medium-term result will be, those who live in goodness, it will lead to purification. Satvikam nirmalam phalam, that is the result. And then what is the result of passion? Rajasastu phalam dukkham. This is a very good phrase to remember. You can repeat it after me. Rajasastu phalam dukkham. So Krishna says, Rajas, if you live only in the mode of passion, the phala, the fruit of that will be dukkham. It will lead to distress. It is often, we see in the material world, the search for happiness is often the cause of the greatest unhappiness. The search for happiness is often the cause of the greatest unhappiness. We can see this most graphically in terms of, say, people who become addicted to something. They thought, I'll drink to go high. But then, they get trapped. Now about drinking, it is said, first the drinker takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the drinker. So, rajasastu phalam dukkham. When we act in the mode of passion, we are thinking only, what will give me pleasure now? Pleasure now, pleasure now. And eventually, it leads to dukkha, it leads to distress. Ajnanam tamasah phalam. And in the mode of ignorance, the result is it is ignorance. So the mode arises in ignorance, mode itself is ignorance, and it leads to deeper ignorance. And then, immediately Krishna says, so this is, I talked about long-term result, the medium-term result, then Krishna talks about the short-term result. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata Jnanamavrittitamah pramade sanjayatyota. Relatively speaking, when we come to goodness, we feel contentment. Okay, things are... There could be many things which will be good, but things are good also right now. But in passion, activity. I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. And in ignorance, there is illusion. There is more and more illusion. So in today's world, which mode are mostly people in? Passion, yes. Constantly doing things. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. Now doing things is not bad. It is, are we consciously deciding to do things? Or are we just being dragged from one thing to another, to another, to another? So if you're consciously planning and doing things, that is good. But if you just get consumed so much by things as we say, the urgent things take up so much time that we don't have time for important things, then it becomes a problem. See, why rajasastu phalam dukkham? Because see, in our life, certain things come with inbuilt deadlines. And certain things don't come with inbuilt deadlines. And most people in today's world, because we are in passion and going towards ignorance, most people can't work without deadlines. How many of you have seen that when there's a deadline, you start working? When the deadline comes close, then you start working very hard. Isn't it? So we are all deadline driven. And in many ways, the mode of passion is better than the mode of ignorance. In ignorance, we'll not do anything. In passion, at least we'll do something. So if there were no deadlines, we would be dead. You could say. Not literally, but we would become inactive. So deadlines are good. They at least get us out of ignorance to passion. But the problem is that when we are only deadline driven, then there are many things in which the deadlines are not so easily seen. Say, for example, our spiritual life. Or even our relationships. If you have a job, we have a deadline in a job. If you have certain work to do at home, the work we have to do, there are deadlines for that. Okay, you have to cook food, you have to go to catch your bus to go to office. I have to complete cooking the food by this time. I have to do this by this time. So, there are deadline driven. Generally, what we have to do with things is often deadline driven. But relationships, they're not deadline driven. But they also need to be given time and attention. So when we are only in the modes of passion and ignorance, either we don't do anything or we do things and we are deadline driven. But then those things which do not have a deadline, then we neglect them. And often our relationship with Krishna, our relationship with devotees, our relationship with the people around us, people who are important for us, we tend to neglect them. So that's why sometimes we feel in the mode of passion, I can get a lot done. Yes, we can get a lot done. But we need time to go into the mode of goodness also periodically, so that we are not just consumed in getting things done. We are also checking whether we are getting important things done. It's important to get things done, but it's important to also get important things done. So in passion, we will definitely get things done. But we'll get so consumed in getting things done that we'll not be checking whether we are getting important things done. And that's why, in some ways, having a Shastric study, this is also something which is not necessarily deadline driven. Oh, Bhagavatam is there to study. Bhagavatam is so big. One day I will start. And what happens? That one day never comes. One day. So, that's why often having some kind of, say, structure for our Shastric study, having Bhakti Shastri, having Bhakti Vaibhav, or having some classes like this, where you are expected every week to read some 2 hours. Shastric study is sattvic, but we are such that without some rajas, we can't even do sattva. Without some passion, we can't do even activities in goodness. So, it's the activity of studying scriptures and goodness. But unless if we want to get something done, because we are so much in passion, we need to infuse some rajas in it. So, we don't want to be taken over by mode of passion entirely, but just one day I will come to the mode of goodness and I will do activities in goodness. It will never happen. So better that, okay, I am in passion right now, but I want to do activities in goodness. Let me do them, let me have some amount of rajas in it. So as I again said, we shouldn't demonize any mode. Every mode has its utility. So, so as I said, Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Rajah Karmani Bharata. So in the mode of goodness, we feel peaceful, we feel calm, we feel reflective, we feel satisfied with our life. In the mode of passion, we are driven by desire to do things. And again, after Krishna, after giving this perspective from long term to medium term to short term, then again he concludes his discussion by giving a long term perspective. He says, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasaha, jaganya gunavrittistha, adho gachanti tamasaha. So this is 14.18. Those who are situated in goodness will get elevated. Those who are in passion will then is stasis, and those who are in ignorance will be degraded. Degraded can refer to lower planets, it can refer to lower species, whichever way it might be. Overall to lower consciousness. And then, after talking about this, now Krishna talks about how can we functionally use all this knowledge. So he says that after you understand all these moods, understand Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drashtanu pashyati gunebhyascha param vetti madbhavam sodhi gacchati. He says that actually it is the modes who are the doers. We are not the doers, the modes are the doers. Apart from the mode, there is no doer, and the soul is the observer. Of course, the soul is not just the observer, the soul is the chooser. Soul is the chooser of the various options. So it's like, say, if you are, say, playing some video game on TV, and say that's you're driving a car, say Grand Auto Theft or something like that, some game you are playing, and then you come to a road. You want to take lane A, lane B, lane C. Now, once you choose a lane A, you can't go on the road of lane B. So basically, we choose lane A, and then the whole the software and the hardware of the software of the computer, the video game, that races our car along that particular lane. So now everything that happens within the video game, we are not exactly doing that. We are choosing. Once we choose, things start zooming up ahead accordingly. So we could say this principle over here is, when Krishna says we are not the doers, what it means, but he says Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drashtanu pashyati gunebhyascha param vetti. We are transcendental. What that means is, we are forced to do as we choose to desire. We are forced to do what we choose to desire. Once we accept a particular desire, this is what I want to do. And suppose an alcoholic is thinking, I'll not drink, I'll drink, I'll not drink, I'll drink. You know, okay, I'm going to drink. Then after that, like a force takes them over and drags them towards drinking. So we are, once we choose, after that the control is lost from our hands. Of course, it's not entirely lost. We can pull back, but we get pulled by the modes very much. That's what Krishna is saying. Understand that you are the chooser. And if you can go beyond the modes, he says you can go beyond the cycle of birth and death. So that's what Krishna said in the beginning of the chapter, that those who understand this knowledge, they will go beyond the cycle of birth and death. That's what Krishna concludes in 14.20 when he says, Gunane tana tityastrim dehi deha samudbhavan janmam tujara dukkhair vimukto amrutam ashnute. Vimukto, they'll become liberated. So at 14.20, Krishna has completed his discussion. And then Arjuna asks 3 questions. And what comes afterwards is the answer to those 3 questions. So, are there any questions? Am I overwhelming all of you? Okay. Okay.
We can go through them at the end of the class. That's why it's there. So we can finish the class and we can go through it.
Okay, I'll try to quickly complete it then. In 7 minutes, I'll complete this last.
Just ask one question.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Obviously, the question which Arjuna asks is how do you overcome and understand both yourself? So that's the what answer that Krishna answers. The question is, my question, when I was talking to Ganesha Prabhu earlier, he asked the question, how do you do that? So the what, the answer to that, how you overcome it is through devotional service.
Okay, I'll talk about it. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Yeah, sure. So in 14.21, Arjuna asks basically 3 questions. Kairlingai strin guna anetan atito bhavati prabho kimachara katham chaitam strin guna nati vartate. So he says, what are the characteristics of one who has transcended the modes? Kairlingai strin guna anetan. The word linga can refer to gender, and linga can also refer to characteristic. So when a baby is newborn, there's certain characteristic by which the gender is determined. So linga can refer to both. So kair linga refers to what is the characteristic in terms of a behavior. Trin guna netan atito bhavati prabho. One who has transcended the modes. So one is for oneself, how can I know internally what is the consciousness by which the modes are transcended? Second is, what is the behavior? Kim achara. If somebody else has transcended or not, how do I know that? I look at their behavior. And a third is katham chaitams, how to transcend. There are 3 questions. This is 14.21. And the first question is answered in 22 and 23. Kai lingais is answered in 22, 23. Kim acharaha is answered in 24, 25. And katham chaitams, how to transcend, that's answered in 26. Now when Krishna talks about how to transcend the modes, the first thing he says is very interesting. Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava nadveshti sampruttani nanavrittani kankshati udasina vadasinam gunairyo na vichalyate gunavartantityeva yovatishtati nengate. Now prakasha pravritti moha, these are 3 modes. Krishna says that when their influence comes, don't get carried away by it. Don't resent it, don't rejoice it. Just observe it. Krishna is telling, become an observer of your thoughts, an observer of your emotions. And udasinavad asinam. Udasinavad means as if detached. So in English there are 2 words. There is uninterested and there is disinterested. Does anyone know the difference between the 2 words? Or you're not interested? Yes?
You're either attached to it or you're not.
Okay, disinterested and uninterested? No, uninterested, they're the same. Okay, so actually the difference is disinterested means having no vested interests, like impartial. And uninterested means having no interest at all. So Krishna uses the word udasinavad, as if detached. So Krishna says be disinterested, not uninterested. Say consider cricket match is going on. And there is the umpire who's right in the middle of the action. And then the ball bowls the ball, and the ball goes and hits the foot of the player. And the batsman, all the players appeal, how's that? And the umpire says, I was not watching the match, I'm not interested. Then what are you doing here? You cannot be uninterested, isn't it? But the umpire has to be disinterested. If the umpire is in favor of the bowling team, every appeal, out. That will not do. So the umpire has to be interested, but also disinterested. Interested in the sense that he has to observe, but disinterested is impartial. So Krishna is saying similarly, become a disinterested observer of your thoughts and emotions. See, when we say our mind is our enemy, we should not listen to the mind. But we can't always say no to everything the mind is saying. That's why I talk about self-discipline and self-discovery. Certain suggestions the mind comes up with, we say certain desires, no. But certain things, yes. So it's like when the players appeal, the umpire doesn't have a default response, yes or no. The umpire evaluates on merit. Similarly, when thoughts and desires come up within us, we evaluate on merit. That's what Krishna is saying. If you understand you are a soul different from your body and mind, then you can evaluate on merit. He says that be situated as the soul and observe your emotions. When you can do this, then you will not get carried away by the emotions. An important point to understand in this is that sometimes we start feeling, okay, how can I just observe? These modes are so strong. I mean, when a particular desire comes, it's going to grow and grow. How can I just keep observing it? That's the secret over here. That our desires, when they come up, the urges that come up, say lust or anger or greed or envy or whatever, say an alcoholic gets the urge to drink, whatever. Now, these urges are not like endlessly rising lines. They increase. We feel it's going to increase, and I'll have to give up eventually. So because I have to give up eventually, let me give up immediately. We think like that. No. Actually, they rise, but they are not like endlessly rising lines. They are like endlessly recurring waves. The wave will rise to a particular point, it will come to a crest, and then it will go down. It will come to a trough. Again, it will rise, but again it will go down. So another example we could use for this is, so we just have to resist it till it rises. After some time, it will subside. But most of the time, we don't resist it till that time. When it starts becoming strong, this is going to be too strong, I can't resist it, and we give up. But if you resist it, the crest will go down. It will come to trough. Another example could be that, say if you are playing an arm wrestling match. Now in an arm wrestling match, suppose the other person is very powerful and they almost got our arm to the ground now. And we think, how long can I hold on? And we just give up. But suppose it's a timed arm wrestling match. So you have to get the other person's arm down in say 3 minutes. And if you can't get in, then this round is over, it's a draw, and you start in the next round. So like that, now our hand might be almost down. But if we can just survive the current round, 3 minutes get over, then we won't start here. We'll start on neutral ground. We'll start from here again. So similarly for us, when the modes come, no mode stays forever. So we could say our dealing with each mode is like one round. One round we are dealing with it. And when Krishna says just tolerate, just observe, stay detached. That means don't get carried away. It's not going to last forever. When we feel bored, when we feel lazy, we just don't feel like doing anything. Yes, that feeling will come, but it's not going to be there forever. Just go through it. Just live through it. So if we just survive the present round, we will resume on neutral ground. Neutral ground. So this is how we can become an observer. Like the players are appealing, and the player keeps appealing. And the umpire says, this player is appealing so much, if I don't give out, the player will keep appealing, so let me give out. No, the player can't keep appealing. If the umpire says no, the player has to start playing again. Isn't it? So our emotions can appeal to us, but we can resist their appeals. So understanding our own spirituality helps us recognize that we are different from our emotions. And we can choose our emotions, choose to accept them or choose to reject them. And then Krishna says, how do you know that some people are actually have transcended the modes? It is by when we see that they stay equipoised. Sukha dukkha samaswastha samaloshta shmakanchana. That he says, in happiness, in distress, in honor, dishonor, they stay equipoised. Now it's interesting, Krishna, if they don't feel happiness, distress, then they won't even know it is happiness, distress, isn't it? It's not that they don't feel it. And another place Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 5.20 that, Na praharishet priyam prapya, no dvijet prapya cha priyam. He says, do not be elated when there is happiness and do not be dejected when there is distress. So Krishna is saying here that you will experience some things as happy and some things as unhappiness. Something that's pleasant, something that's unpleasant. We can't wish away our experience. So some people are just such a joy to be with. And some people are a pain to be with. Now we can't deny the emotion that we feel. But we don't have to get carried away by that emotion. So Krishna is saying, if somebody can stay equipoised, then they have transcended the modes. And then how do we get there? So one thing I talked about is just by self-observation. But then Krishna says, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That if you become fixed in bhakti, then you can transcend the modes. Now we may wonder, it is because of the modes only I can't be fixed in bhakti. Because the mode of ignorance is so strong, I can't wake up in the morning. Because the mode of passion is so strong, I don't feel like sitting and studying Shastra or chanting or whatever else. So the modes are what is coming in the way of bhakti. So how can I be fixed in bhakti and thereby go beyond the modes? So it's like the old chicken and egg question. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, whatever you have. Start with it. If you have a chicken, lay an egg. If you have an egg, get a chicken. So, how do we work? We work with whatever we have right now. So, if I say that, okay, I cannot wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, then what time can you wake up? That's why I said self-discovery and self-discipline. So, we could say, I cannot be fixed in bhakti at this level, but I can be fixed in bhakti at this level. I can be fixed in bhakti at this level. So we connect with Krishna as much as we can right now. And through that fixed connection, gradually our purity will increase. And then we can expand that connection. That means somebody says, oh, okay, I find this, I don't like this, I don't find this so I find this too difficult. Okay, what do you like to do in bhakti? What can you do, what one thing can you become fixed in bhakti? Okay, I can come to the temple once a week. Okay, make that as a fixed commitment. Other things also we want to do, but if there's something which we like to do, then doing it will not be an austerity. I'll conclude. This is a partial answer to your question. I'll conclude with this. See, there is emotion and there is reason within us. We have certain emotions and we have a logical faculty. So when Krishna is telling, become an observer of your emotions, it's like use reason. And this emotion is not good, this desire is not good, this thought is not good, I'll not do it. So we have emotion and we have reason. And if there is a battle between emotion and reason, we say we should try to be rational, we try to be reasonable. But sometimes the emotions are too powerful. So in the battle between emotion and reason, if we have only reason on the spiritual side and emotion on the material side or the mental side, we will not be able to sustain our spirituality. But what bhakti does is, bhakti gets emotion also on the spiritual side. How does bhakti do that? Okay, within bhakti, find out something that you like to do. And make that more and more accessible to yourself. Suppose somebody likes kirtans. Then just maybe memorize your favorite tunes or keep some of your favorite kirtans with you. So when the lower modes start hitting us, when passion starts hitting us, when ignorance starts hitting us, so it's like the hand has almost gone down. You're just not able to resist anymore. At that time, if we have to think reasonably, logically, it will be very difficult because we are so much caught in the battle. But if we could, at that time, connect our consciousness to something which we like to do. Say, if anger or desire or what is overwhelming us, we may find at that time philosophy difficult to think. But if we have our favorite picture of Krishna's darshan, just look at that. Immediately, we feel some devotion, we feel some connection. Or if we like some kirtan, if we like some shlokas, then just keep those shlokas, maybe a recording those shlokas or the print of those shlokas, and just recite that. Just recite that. So by that what will happen? We will get some emotion will move spiritually also. So once that spiritual connection is established, then the material emotion that is pulling us by the modes, we can decrease it. So Rupa Goswami, in his Bhakti Rasam, in his Ujjwal Neelamani, which is like the next book after Bhakti Rasam Sindhu, he calls this as Uddipan. Uddipan means spiritual stimulus. See, all of us have certain sensual stimuli that agitate us. Somebody, say, who is in a country like America, for them, cricket usually refers to an insect. So you say, cricket match is going on. What? Two crickets are fighting with each other. See, a cricket match is going on, that may not agitate them at all. But for them, baseball or basketball, that's very big. They might get agitated by that. So just like in the world, we have certain sensual stimuli that agitate us. And those stimuli might not agitate the other person. So just as there are particular sensual stimuli for each person. Similarly, there can be particular spiritual stimuli for each person. So we find those spiritual stimuli that can connect us with Krishna. And we try to become fixed in that. Mam cha yoga vicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So unflinchingly connect with that. Or some people actually like philosophy. They like to hear classes of a class, in general classes, or classes of a particular devotee, or classes on a particular subject, a particular pastime. Then what we like, we keep that accessible to us. So there is self-discipline, but there is also self-discovery. Oh, this is what I like. Then I'll use this to gain strength and to resist doing what I don't like. So if you become fixed in one activity of bhakti, gradually that will lead to purification. And that purification will enable us to become fixed in other activities in bhakti also. And that's how we can transcend the modes. And ultimately Krishna says that by practicing bhakti, you'll come to the Brahman platform. The Brahman platform is the abode of lasting happiness. So, Sukham Atyant. The ultimate happiness at the Brahman platform. Now that can be just by understanding ourselves as soul, understanding ourselves as parts of Krishna. All eternal happiness is at the spiritual level. So this way Krishna concludes this chapter by telling us how both through self-observation and through devotion, we can transcend the modes. So thank you very much. So let's quickly take some questions. How do you differentiate between the mind and the intelligence? Ultimately, taxonomy is always there are no watertight categories. Say like, if you see the world map, this is America, this is Canada. But if you go there, it's not that there's a clean dividing line on the topography. That this is America, this is Canada. So in general, we could say that, so what is mind, what is intelligence? We don't have an inner eye which we can see, and there are no inner boxes. This is mind speaking, this is intelligence speaking. So broadly what we can see is, to functionally differentiate between the two, is see not where something is coming from, but where something is taking us. So if something is taking us in a direction which we know from past experience is unhealthy, then we can presume it is coming from the mind. If something is taking us towards a positive direction, we can say it is coming from the intelligence. That's a functional way to differentiate. Now, should we master the mind or become a mastermind? Okay, that was, actually I think the words are very different over here. See, the word mind, we use it in a very different sense from what it's used in the world. You may say that Einstein was one of the greatest minds of the last century. Now, where we here use the word mind, it refers to basically intellectual capacity, an intelligent person. Or sometimes when we use the word, have you lost your mind? There, what do you mean? It's not that your mind has fallen away and you don't know where it is. Then mind is not a physical object. Have you lost your mind? There it means, we are referring to mind as good sense. Or we also say, give this your full mind. There we are using the word mind to refer to attention. Give this your attention. So the word mind has different meanings. So when we say master the mind, that simply means that the impulsive force which comes up within us, which goes for short-sighted pleasure, short-sighted drives, vindictiveness, that which is short-term within us, learn to restrain it. That is master the mind. Whereas mastermind refers to somebody who is very expert in a particular field. So somebody might be a mastermind in, say, management. Somebody might be mastermind in leadership. Somebody might be a mastermind in painting, whatever. So mastermind usually refers to some extraordinary talented capacity with which somebody is able to do some things in life. So if our spiritual master has given a service which is not aligned to our nature, like preaching for an introvert, no, it's not that simple. Why? Because generally, understanding our nature also takes some time. If we ask our mind, what is my nature? What is the service according to my nature? The mind will say, whatever service you are doing now, that is not according to your nature. So, even presuming that my service is not according to my nature, that could also be a trick of the mind. thinking that this is not according to my nature, that could also be a trick of the mind. Because understanding our nature also takes some time. So broadly speaking, when we are trying to practice bhakti, we learn the principle of submission and discipline. Try to do whatever service we are told to do as much as we can. But while doing services, we observe ourselves. Okay, this service I'm good at doing. This service I'm comfortable doing it. So when Krishna says guna karma vibhagashaha, guna and karma, I put in contemporary terms as competence and comfort. So if I'm comfortable doing something and I'm competent at doing something, we could indicate that is broadly according to our nature. And so gradually we can gravitate toward that service. So initially we may just be told to do what we are told to do. But if you see in longer term, the spiritual master wants us to learn the principle of obedience. But the spiritual master also wants us to be happily situated in bhakti and to be sustainably situated in bhakti. So if you are doing a service which is according to nature, we can do it for a long time. So there can be discussion, negotiation, and we can tell I can do this service, I'll be doing it, but I feel inspired to do this. Can I do this? We can talk with our authorities. And usually, it's not that the spiritual master will deliberately tell us to do something which is not against our nature, which is against our nature. So if we talk and understand and explore, we can gradually gravitate toward the service according to our nature. And it's not that introverts can't preach. Actually, there are different kinds of preaching. There's some kind of preaching which requires one to be like a charismatic crowd puller. So generally, introverts may find that difficult. But there is also preaching which is where people are more education. You are more of an educator. Say like something like Bhakti Shastri course or even systematic scriptural study. You don't need to be an extrovert for that. Because that time you can study and you can discuss deeply subjects. So we don't have to think that preaching is not for extroverts. Same service can be done in different ways. Now even an introvert may distribute books. But the way an introvert distributes books will be different from the way an extrovert distributes books. So we shouldn't equate a service with a particular nature. That will happen when we equate a service with a particular way of doing service. There's a difference. Some devotees, when they give class, it's like they're so animated, it's a performance. For some devotees, when they give a class, nothing except their mouth is moving. Now, the classes can be given in different ways. The important thing is that you be effective. So, we don't have to necessarily equate. So, the way an extrovert may preach may not be the way an introvert preaches. But if we can communicate the message, we can connect with people, then we can do that service in our own way. Okay. Yes, please.
Prabhu, you spoke about mind. You said we need to discover ourselves. So the message I'm getting is any which ways it's just hard to control your mind. No matter what you do, the mind will tell you this is right or this is not right, and both the answers could be ultimately wrong. So just don't know how to. It's just hard to understand. Is it so hard to understand yourself? Is it so, do you need someone to help you understand yourself? And how do you know even that?
Okay. So, is it hard to understand ourselves if we say sometimes we do self-discovery, that means do we listen to our mind? And when that is right, when that is wrong? See, first thing is, life never comes with a guarantee of right decisions. If we wait for the right decision, we will wait for the rest of eternity. Because we are finite beings and we can never have absolute certainty about anything. So we just use whatever intelligence, whatever knowledge we have, and we just do the best that we can. So if we find after some time that, okay, I did this, but that didn't work out so well, so we change that. We choose a particular service because I feel like doing it. So what we could do to prevent being carried away by the mind is that not just change services based on emotions. Say, if I decide to do a particular service, then commit for some finite time. Maybe 3 months, 6 months, 1 month at least, 1 year, whatever. Whatever my mind says, now I want to do this service. And maybe after 3 months or 6 months, okay, I felt it was very good. I was also felt very happy and I was also able to do service. Then I can continue that. Or if I feel, okay, it was quite an austerity. But still do that austerity for 3 months, whatever. Then you change over to something else. So that way, we use our intelligence as much as we can to plan. This is what I'm going to do. And then do it the best we can. And then, that's why you could say there is self-discovery initially when we're doing a particular thing. Just think and then decide what I'm going to do. But when you're doing it, have self-discipline. Just have self-discipline at that time. Do it. We don't make such an extreme resolution that we can't keep it. But just in a moderate way, what is possible, we do it. And then, after that finite period is complete, then again have self-observation for self-discovery. So that way, we could have this alternate. Otherwise, if you're constantly trying to do both things, we will end up doing nothing. So when we are doing self-discipline, just focus on self-discipline. When you're doing self-discovery, focus on self-discovery. That way, by separating the two, we'll be able to move forward. Okay? And certain guidance helps. If we can have somebody with whom we can talk, and they can tell us from their perspective. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a spiritual guide. If we have somebody with whom we can talk and understand ourselves better, it's good because we don't just think by thinking. We also think by talking. So thinking by writing journaling is also helpful. So just trying to think inside the head can be quite confusing. We start thinking inside the head, we get lost inside the head sometimes. So either write it down, talk with someone. That also helps. Okay. And don't worry so much it's a wrong decision or right decision, because that conclusiveness we can never have. We just do the best that we can. Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Just what you've been describing, does it reach a point where it culminates in a level of internal guidance, intuition, I guess, that helps you make those decisions about how best to use your time in Krishna consciousness?
Oh, yeah, good question. So, will we eventually come to a time where we start getting internal guidance about how best to use our time in Krishna's service? Yeah, we will broadly get an understanding of ourselves good enough to know what we should do and we should not do. It may not be like a black and white kind of understanding, but at least broadly we'll understand. Now, this is service which I don't want to get into right now. This I want to, maybe I can consider it. So as we understand ourselves more and more, it's not that everything will just come by spontaneous clear guidance. But there are some things which you'll understand, this is not for me. And I don't want to get involved in this. I really want to do this. And we can also observe ourselves by that. We can see what interests us the most. I have a whole seminar on discovering our purpose in life. So I talk about 3 things. College seminar when I talk about 3 broadly principles. That there is there's a problem, there is a potential, and there is a process. That means in the world out there is something wrong which I feel I need to fix, or which I feel needs to be fixed. The world is a very big place. I can't fix the world. Even in our own movement, our own community, there are so many things which could be improved. But there is some problem which we feel strongly about. Now, this needs to be fixed. So that we look at the world, and when we look at things, what do we strongly feel? This should be done better. Then secondly, potential. Do I have the ability to do it? Otherwise, I just keep complaining, this is bad, this is bad. So look at a problem, look at the issue that we feel strongly about. Look at yourself to see whether we have the resources, we have the ability to deal with that. And third is the process. Now, I should also have, I might feel that, okay, I want to have deity worship. Our kirtans can be done much better. And I have singing ability also. But then, maybe I don't have the process. Whom should I approach? I can't just, somebody else is doing kirtan. I can't pick the kirtan mic and start singing over there. So maybe I have to approach the right authority. So process. So we look at these 3 things broadly. A problem that we feel strongly about, a potential that we have and we can develop, and a process for using that potential to solve that problem. So by that, gradually we can discover our purpose in life. And it's not necessary that we have to always have the best purpose. See, even a suboptimal purpose is better than no purpose. And we work on suboptimal purposes right now, and gradually we have to work on a more optimal purpose also. Okay, thank you. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, yes.
Can you give a live example for separating the self-discovery and self-discipline?
Okay. A live example for separating self-discipline and self-discovery. Say some devotees try to do management, and after they do management, others have to manage them. They get so stressed and worked up that more than the service, the person becomes a source of stress for others. So maybe don't do management then. So we all need to take some amount of stress in our service, some amount of challenge. But there is this concept of comfort zone, stretch zone, and panic zone. So the idea is if I can lift 10 kg weight and I'll go and lift 1 kg weight, there's not hardly any exercise, I'm in comfort zone. If I lift 11, 12 kg weight, that is some exercise. That's like a stretch zone. But if I try to lift 50 kg weight, I'll get crushed. So we all want to take challenges, but we have to see whether the challenge stimulates us or challenge just burdens us, agitates us, irritates us. So that's how if something is just too agitating for us and too agitating for others, then we can say that we discover that this is what I'm not so good at doing. Sometimes we do something and, hey, this worked out so well. I didn't know I was good at this. So basically, by seeing how well we are able to do it, comfort and competence I talked about, by that we can separate the self-discovery and self-discipline. Does it make sense? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so... Okay, what if other priorities consume us even if we don't want to be consumed? If we want to be in goodness, but then we find ourselves pushed into passion. See, we can't begin in our life unless we begin with our life. We can't begin in our life, I want to do this, I want to do that. But we have to begin with our life. So if our current priorities, our current situations require a certain amount of passion, just trying to wish I want to be in goodness, hell, that's not going to help. Begin where you are. So then all of us can create, say if I find that out of 10 hours of work that I do, 12 hours of work, whatever I do, out of that, most of the time I need to be in passion. Okay, then try to create maybe some half an hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes of time where you try to be in goodness. And gradually that may increase. So we can't reject the situation that we are in right now. We have to work with that situation. But we don't have to let that situation control us completely. In life, sometimes we are in, say life is like a tennis match. Say in a tennis match, sometimes you are serving and sometimes you are returning. Now when we are returning, at that time we have very little control. Isn't it? The player might have very good forehand. But if the ball comes on the backhand, and the player says, my forehand is so good, I'll hit on the forehand. Well, you will only hit air. At that time, the player has to play on the backhand and somehow get the ball back in the play. And once you get ball back in the play, then eventually you may be able to play on the forehand also. So when a player is returning, they have far greater constraints. But they don't have to keep returning all the time. Eventually they'll be serving also. So sometimes we are in situations in life when we are returning. So when we are returning, our situations are constrained. And there are players who have become Grand Slam champions simply by their expertise on returning. Very good returners. And so even working within constrained situations can also help us grow. And that's how we can also move forward in our life. So yes, if my situation requires me mostly to be in passion, accept that. But within that, create some pocket of goodness for yourself. And maybe in the future situation will change and there can be more goodness afterwards. Okay. So, shall we stop here? So, very intelligent way of signaling by turning off that. So, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanande.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for such wonderful